kicked my chair and said, "You're not family anymore." That same night, my granddaughter texted, "Mom says we're tired of wrinkles in the house." They'll learn what it means to disrespect the woman who built it. The words didn't compute at first. Trent's voice was a low hiss, meant only for me, but his smile to the room was wide and generous. He was hosting. He was the man of the hour. "You don't belong here anymore, Helen," he whispered, his breath smelling of expensive scotch. "Let us handle our lives." He hadn't literally kicked the chair. That would have been too obvious, too crude for the man Trent had become. He had simply had it removed. I was standing in the entryway of the Willows, a reception hall with ceilings so high they probably had their own weather system. My granddaughter, Kayla, was getting engaged. I had baked her favorite lemon squares, the ones with the extra thick shortbread crust she'd loved since she was 8. The heavy Pyrex dish was still in my hands, getting heavier by the second. I was wearing my new dress, a navy blue lace Talbot's number I'd saved for 2 months to buy. I'd shown up early, like I always do, expecting to help arrange flowers or set out name cards. Instead, a young woman with a clipboard and a stressed-out expression had stopped me at the door. "I'm sorry, ma'am, what's the name?" "Helen Vaughn. I'm Kayla's grandmother." The woman's eyes scanned the list and scanned it again. Her face tightened with embarrassment. I don't see a Helen Vaughn or a seat for Vaughn." That's when Trent had materialized, all self-satisfied charm, wrapped in a suit that probably cost more than my first car. He'd clapped a hand on my shoulder, steering me just outside the main doorway into a little alcove by the coat check. And that's when he'd told me. I just stood there, holding the lemon squares. My reflection in the glass of the coat check window looked small, old. "Trent, I don't understand," I said, and I hated how my voice trembled. "It must be a mistake." "No mistake," he said, and his eyes were like 2 polished stones. "Melissa and I feel it's just time for a change. You've been a big help, Helen, but this is a new chapter. For us." He took the lemon squares from my hands. "I'll make sure these get to the caterer." He didn't even look at them. He just set them on the coat check counter and walked back into the party, his laughter already booming as he greeted someone new. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, or 10. The music started, some string quartet playing a song I didn't know. I could hear the pop of a champagne cork. I turned around and walked out. I didn't cry on the drive home. I just felt empty, like a house that had been cleared out before demolition. My hands were steady on the wheel of my 10-year-old Honda. I'd helped Trent pick out his first decent car, a used Ford Explorer. I'd co-signed the loan. The house was empty when I got back. Of course it was. They were all at the party. The house I was living in, their house, as Trent constantly reminded me, was a 5,000 square foot new build in a gated community. It was all gray and white marble, with furniture that looked like it was designed to be photographed, not sat on. My room was the converted den off the kitchen. It was small, but it was mine. I'd moved in 6 years ago, right after my husband, Robert, died. Melissa, my daughter, had sat at my old kitchen table, the one Robert built, and cried. "Mom, you can't be alone in this big house," she'd said. "Move in with us. We'll support one another. We're family." So I sold that house, the 3-bedroom ranch on Maple Street Robert bought in 1987, the one with the weird yellow shutters he'd painted and we'd never changed. I put a significant chunk of the proceeds, $150,000, into their down payment fund for this new, bigger place. And for 6 years, I was family. I was the live-in cook, the unpaid nanny, the emergency contact for the school. I was the one who kept the household running while Trent's contracting firm, T-Squared Contracting, started to take off. And when it almost didn't, when it was struggling in 2018, I was the one who co-signed the $50,000 business loan that kept it afloat. My perfect credit, my name, my security. I sat on the edge of my bed, the navy dress still on. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I thought, for a wild, hopeful second, that it was Melissa, that it was Kayla, apologizing, telling me to come back. I picked it up. It was a text from Kayla. Mom says she can't stand seeing wrinkles in the pictures. Please understand. I read it once, twice, 10 times. The words swam, then sharpened into something brutal. Wrinkles. That's all I was. An unsightly blemish on their perfect marble and glass life. I didn't reply. I just sat in my car. Oh, I realized I'd never even gotten out of the car. I was still in the driveway. The engine was off. The lemon squares were on the passenger seat, the plastic wrap fogging up in the cooling air. I tried to confront Melissa the next morning. She was at the enormous kitchen island, sipping coffee from a mug that said, "Girl Boss," and furiously typing on her laptop. "Melissa, we need to talk about last night." She didn't look up. "Mom, I'm so busy. The party was a huge success, but the cleanup is a nightmare. Can it wait?" "No, it can't. Your husband told me I didn't belong. Your daughter said you were tired of my wrinkles." She finally looked up, and her eyes were cold. It was like seeing a stranger.
"You're being so dramatic, Mom," she sighed, rubbing her temples. "It was a seating chart mix-up. Trent was stressed. You know how he gets. And Kayla she just wants perfect pictures. Is that so bad? You're making this all about you." "A seating chart mix-up?" I held up my phone, my hand shaking. "This isn't a mix-up, Melissa. This is cruelty." "Fine," she snapped, slamming her laptop shut. "You want the truth? Trent thinks you're a bad look. You're always hovering, always in your old gardening clothes, always telling us how Dad used to do things. We're trying to build a life, a status, and you don't fit. We can't keep dragging you along." Dragging me along? The woman who had raised her. The woman who had financed this status. I felt the blood drain from my face. The $50,000 I co-signed for? The $150,000 from my house? Oh, for God's sake, Mom! Are you really bringing up money? That was a gift. You wanted to help. Don't try to hold that over our heads now. Trent has paid you back 10 times over by letting you live here rent-free. Letting me? In the house I paid for? "I want to be bought out of that loan," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "I want my name off of it." Melissa actually laughed. A short, ugly bark. "You can't. The bank won't allow it. Trent's financials are too complex. You're locked in, Mom. Just like us." She smiled. A thin, tight smile. "So you see, you have two choices. You can be the quiet, grateful grandma who lives in the den, or you can leave. But either way, your name stays on that paper." She thought she had me. She thought I had no options. She thought I was just a tired old woman, good for nothing but babysitting and baking. She was wrong. I went back to my room. I didn't pack. I sat on my bed, the unslept-in covers, and I thought. I looked at my bank account online. I had my savings, my widow's pension. It wasn't FU money, but it was get out money. I looked around the room, at the few things I'd kept from the house on Maple Street. My old wedding album, a framed photo of Robert, and, in the back of my closet, a box of old correspondence. I started to go through it, not sure what I was looking for. A will? an old policy, anything. And then I found it. An old Christmas card, postmarked 2010. It was from my cousin, Walter Vaughn, a quiet, old money man from Robert's side of the family. I hadn't seen Walter in, God, it must have been 15 years. Not since Robert's funeral. And even then, it was just a brief, sad handshake. But I remembered him from before. I remembered 1995. Walter's life had imploded. A nasty divorce, a business partner who cheated him. He was broken. And Robert and I had taken him in. He'd stayed with us on Maple Street for 3 months, sleeping on our pull-out sofa, eating my casseroles, and talking with Robert on the porch until 2 a.m. He'd left with a clear head and an envelope of cash from Robert that he called an investment, not a loan.
Walter had rebuilt his life. He was now the regional director for Creston Holdings, one of the biggest, most powerful construction and development firms in the state. My mind started to click. Kayla's engagement announcement was still on the fridge, a perfect photo of her and her new fiancé, a handsome young man named Drew. Fiancé, Drew Miller. I'd Googled him when they first got engaged, just simple grandmotherly curiosity. Project manager at Creston Holdings. My breath caught in my chest. It wasn't a heart attack. It was a spark. I didn't pack a bag. I just grabbed my purse, my keys, and the $40 in emergency cash I'd kept in my sock drawer. I walked out of the kitchen, past Melissa, who was back on her laptop. She didn't even look up. I drove for 2 hours. I didn't go to a hotel. I drove straight to Gladwine, to the old money enclave where I knew Walter lived. I found his house, a magnificent old stone manor set back from the road, and I just pulled up the driveway. I rang the bell, unannounced, feeling like a fool. He answered the door himself. He was older, gray at the temples, but his eyes were the same, quiet, intelligent, and kind. He looked at me. "Helen?" "Hello, Walter," I said, my voice cracking. I baked you some lemon squares." I'd forgotten I was still holding them. I'd grabbed them from the passenger seat out of sheer habit. He looked at the Pyrex dish, then at my face. He stepped aside. "Get in here, Helen. You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," I said, stepping over the threshold. "I've seen my family." We talked 4 hours. I told him everything. The move, the loan, the party, the chair, the wrinkles. I talked. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He just poured me a cup of very good tea and let me speak. When I was done, he was quiet for a long time. He just stared into the fireplace. "He mistook your decency for weakness, Helen. Robert would be apoplectic." "I'm not here for revenge, Walter." I lied, or maybe I didn't know it was a lie yet. "I'm here because I'm scared. My name is on that $50,000 loan. Melissa said I'm locked in. I'm worried Train is going to ruin me." A faint, cold smile touched Walter's lips. "Drew Miller, Kayla's fiancé, is one of my brightest young PMs. A real shark." "He seems nice," I offered weakly. "He is, which is why he's horrified by his future father-in-law. Drew's the one who flagged Trent's proposal." My heart stopped. "Proposal?"
T-Squared Contracting is bidding for a massive subcontract, Walter said, standing up and walking to the grand mahogany desk in his study. "The new retail park over on 202. It's a multi-million-dollar job. Trent's firm is in the final running. Drew, to his credit, disclosed his relationship and recused himself from the final review, which is why the full proposal landed on my desk this morning." He held up a thick binder-clipped document,
On the cover was the T-squared logo. I looked at it. All that arrogance, all that cruelty, all of it was built on a foundation of what? He's over-leveraged, isn't he? I asked. He's a house of cards, Walter said. His numbers, they're optimistic. Fanciful, even. He needs this contract, Helen. He needs it badly. I saw the out he was giving me. He could just deny the contract. Trent's company would probably fold. It would be quick, clean. But that wasn't right. It wasn't enough. It would leave Melissa and Kayla to believe I was a bitter old woman who'd sabotaged their success. No, the truth had to do the work. Helen? Walter asked, watching my face. I smiled. It was a faint, thin smile, but it was mine. Approve the contract, Walter. He blinked. What? Approve it. He'll be insufferable. He'll think he's king of the world. I took a breath. But before you cut the first check, before you ever pay him a dime, conduct a routine audit. A deep one. You're Creston Holdings. You have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders to make sure your subcontractors are solvent. Walter looked at me, really looked at me. The kindness in his eyes was still there, but now it was joined by a sharp, appreciative gleam. An audit, he said, testing the word. You're just being a good businessman, I said. And while you're at it, I'm worried about that loan I co-signed, the $50,000. Could your auditors just see where it went? I want to make sure my investment is safe. Helen Vaughn, Walter said, a slow smile spreading across his face. It's good to see you again. He introduced me to his head of accounting, a woman named Sarah who had ice water in her veins and a mind like a steel trap. We met the next day. I moved into a small, furnished apartment, a 2-room suite at an extended stay hotel. I told Sarah everything. She had me sign a form authorizing her team to look into the co-signed account. If he's messy, we'll find it, she promised. Oh, he's messy. The next 6 months were a masterclass in duality. I was living my parallel, mundane life. I was Helen Vaughn, retiree, living in a beige apartment, learning how to use the smart thermostat that was never the right temperature. I was the woman who bought generic brand yogurt and did laundry in the basement Conot machine. At the same time, I was Helen Vaughn, strategic analyst. I had weekly calls with Sarah. We're in, she'd say, her voice crisp. He got the first stage approval. He's already posting on social media about it. I checked. Trent had a new profile picture, him and Melissa, clinking champagne glasses on a boat. The caption, to the big leagues, #T-squared, #Creston. I screenshotted and sent it to Sarah. Melissa called, of course, not to apologize, to rage. Where are you? She'd shrieked into the phone 3 days after I'd left. Trent's partners are asking where you are. It's embarrassing. I'm at the Residence Inn on Route 7, I'd said calmly. I'm perfectly safe. You're in a hotel? You're tearing this family apart after all we've done for you. You have my number, I'd said, and hung up. Trent escalated. He sent a text. If you don't come back by Sunday, don't expect to see the grandkids. Your choice, Helen. He thought I was bluffing. He thought I'd come crawling back, terrified of losing Kayla and the boys. He didn't know that in my mind, he'd already taken them. I forwarded the text to Walter. For your records. Walter's reply, duly noted. The small victories started to roll in. Got him, Sarah said on a Tuesday call 4 weeks in. A $14,200 withdrawal from the co-signed account, March 12, 2019. My heart hammered. What was it for? Labeled subcontractor payout for Apex Framing, except Apex Framing doesn't exist. The LLC it was paid to was registered to a Jessica Reimer. Mean anything to you? My blood ran cold. Trent's ex-girlfriend from before Melissa. Bingo. It's a straight-up personal withdrawal. He falsified the invoice. It's big fraud, Helen. Clean and simple.
But we didn't move. Not yet. That's the appetizer, Walter advised me over dinner. We were having Sunday dinners now, at his club. It was nice. Let's wait for the main course. The main course came 2 months later. Sarah's team, in their routine audit of the new project's financials, cross-referenced his vendor list. He's claiming $1.4 million in prepaid material costs from a lumber supplier. He submitted invoices to us to justify the first payout. And, I asked, the supplier is real, but the invoices are fake. We called them. They've never done more than $50K in business with T-Squared. He padded the members. He was going to use our first payout to cover his other debts, and then, who knows, rob Peter to pay Paul. It's wire fraud, I whispered. Among other things, Sarah said, we also found, well, his personal taxes are a work of fiction. He's been writing off everything. The boat, Melissa's car, even Kayla's engagement ring, all as business expenses. The trap was set. The evidence was compiled. Walter's legal team reviewed everything. We're obligated to report this to the IRS, to the State Banking Commission, and, of course, to Creston's board. Of course, I said. The timeline is sensitive, he said. Trent and Melissa have rescheduled the official engagement party, the one you were uninvited to. They're doing it at their house to celebrate the new partnership with Creston. When is it? Saturday. Well, I said, smoothing the front of my simple black dress, we can't be late.
The party was exactly as obnoxious as I had pictured. Valet parking on the suburban street, a string quartet on the lawn, 200 people I didn't know, all dressed in expensive, bland clothing, drinking champagne and eating tiny, unidentifiable things off trays. I'd thought about what I'd wear. I'd considered the navy lace dress. It felt wrong. Instead, I wore a simple, black sheath dress I'd owned for 10 years. Robert had loved it. I wore his mother's simple pearl necklace. I felt armored. Walter, in an impeccably tailored suit, offered me his arm. Ready, Helen? I am. We didn't use the valet. Walter had his driver drop us at the end of the driveway. We walked up. The buzz of conversation died for a split second as we stepped onto the patio. Melissa saw me first. Her face, flushed with wine and triumph, went pale. She grabbed Trent's arm. Kayla, standing beside her in a white dress, just stared. Her face was a mask of confusion. Trent turned. When he saw me, his face went from pale to a deep, blotchy red. But when he saw Walter standing next to me, the color drained away completely. He looked for a split second like a child who'd been caught. He recovered quickly, plastering on his host smile. Walter, what a surprise. I wasn't expecting you. He strode over, hand outstretched. Walter ignored the hand. Trent, Walter said, his voice not loud but carrying in the sudden lull. We're here on business. The word hung in the air. Audit. The music seemed to stop. I don't know what you're talking about, Trent stammered, looking around. His new friends were watching. The routine audit that Creston Holdings conducts on all new major subcontractors, the one you signed off on in your contract. What audit? Trent repeated, his voice getting higher. The audit that found the $14,200 you stole from Helen's co-signed bank account in 2019, Walter said, his voice flat, clear, and cold. The money you funneled to a shell company registered to Jessica Reimer. Melissa made a small, strangled noise. She knew the name. The audit that found the $1.4 million in falsified invoices you submitted to us for the retail park project, Walter continued. Trent was white. That's a lie. That's slander. And the audit that uncovered, Walter said, as if he were reading a grocery list, your creative accounting with the IRS.
writing off a boat, a Range Rover, and an engagement ring as client entertainment. This was the moment, the face moment. Trent's eyes darted from Walter to me to the crowd. He was looking for an exit. He was looking for an ally. He looked at Drew, his fiancé-in-law-to-be, who was standing there, his face ashen, looking utterly horrified. He looked at Kayla, who was crying. He looked at me. You old bitch. You did this. He took a step toward me. I didn't flinch. Walter stepped in front of me. I wouldn't. And just then, two men in boring, ill-fitting suits stepped onto the patio from the side gate. They'd been waiting. "Mr. Trent Davis," the first one said, flipping open a badge. "IRS, criminal investigation. We have a warrant to seize all financial records, computers, and related materials from this property." The second man nodded to Walter. "Mr. Vaughn, thank you for your cooperation." That was the moment. I didn't expect it to feel like this. I thought it would be loud, triumphant, like a movie. It was quiet. It was sterile. The only sound was the clicking of phones as every guest on that patio started filming. The socialites, the business partners, the neighbors, reporters. The public humiliation was complete. A woman in a $2,000 dress whispered to her friend, "I told you his money was funny." Drew, Kayla's fiancé, walked over to her. He didn't touch her. He said, "It's over, Kayla. I'm so sorry." He turned and walked away, past the IRS agents, past me, and didn't look back.
Kayla crumpled to the ground, her sobs lost in the sudden frantic murmur of the crowd. Melissa, however, did not crumble. She ran. She ran to Trent. "Tell them it's a lie, Trent!" she screamed, grabbing his arm. "Tell them it's her! She's lying! She's a bitter old woman!" Trent just stood there, mute, as the agent handed him the warrant. He looked small. The expensive suit suddenly looked like a costume. Melissa turned her rage on me. You did this! You ruined us! You hated us! You were always jealous!" I just looked at her. My daughter. I didn't say a word. What was there to say? "Ma'am," one of the agents said to Melissa, "we're going to have to ask you to step inside. This house is now part of an active investigation." "The house," she whispered. "The house?" The agent looked at her, unsympathetic. "The assets are frozen, ma'am, pending investigation. The house I paid for." I turned to Walter. "I'd like to go home now." "Of course, Helen," he said. He put a hand on the small of my back and guided me through the crowd. People parted for us. They looked at me with a new expression. Not pity, not contempt, awe. As I stepped off the patio, I heard Melissa's final, desperate wail. "Mom! Mom, don't leave! You have to help us! Mom!" I never turned around. The fallout was systematic. Trent was facing a slew of federal charges: bank fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion. T-Squared Contracting was shuttered, its assets seized. The house, which they'd leveraged to the hilt, was lost. Melissa called me 3 days later from a burner phone. Mom, are you there?" She was weeping. That desperate hiccuping sound I hadn't heard since she was a toddler. "I'm here, Melissa. They took everything. The house, the cars. We're at a motel. A horrible, dirty motel. Trent, they're going to arrest him." "Yes," I said.
"You have to stop it," she shrieked. "You have to tell them it was all a mistake. Tell Walter. You can fix this. Please, Mom, we're family." I was quiet for a long moment. I looked around my little beige apartment. It was clean. It was quiet. It was mine. "No, Melissa, I can't." But But we're sitting on the floor here. It's horrible. You have to help. That's the thing about chairs, sweetheart, I said, my voice perfectly steady, perfectly calm. Kick one too many, and you end up sitting on the floor. I hung up the phone. I unplugged it from the wall. It wasn't a clean victory. It never is. I paid a price. I saw Kayla, about 6 months later. I was in the grocery store, in the baking aisle, picking out flour. She rounded the corner, pushing a cart. She wasn't wearing her ring. She looked thin, tired. Our eyes met. I smiled, a small, tentative, hopeful smile. "Kayla!" She just stared at me. Her eyes, which used to be so full of light when I'd bake lemon squares, were just cold, empty. She said nothing. She just turned her cart around, the wheels squeaking, and walked quickly down another aisle. That hurt. That was the cold part, the part where victory doesn't feel like a celebration, it just feels done. But I wasn't alone. Walter and I have dinner every Sunday. He's my family. He's the brother Robert always wanted and the friend I'd forgotten I had. He's solid and kind, and he never, ever mistakes my decency for weakness. The $50,000 from my savings, the money I'd saved for a rainy day, the money that would have been wiped out if Trent had bankrupted me, I knew exactly what to do with it. I took it to the local women's legal aid group, a small, struggling office over a laundromat. I met with the director, a tired-looking woman named Maria. I told her a shortened version of my story. She listened, nodding. "We see this every day, Mrs. Vaughn," she said, her eyes sad. "The financial abuse, the co-signing, the wrinkles." "Well," I said, sliding the check across her desk, "I'd like to start a fund, a small one, to help women get their names off the paper." She looked at the check. $50,000? Her eyes filled with tears. "Mrs. Vaughn, this isn't small. This is everything." I told her to name the fund after my late husband, the Robert Vaughn Second Chance Fund. I didn't just leave a check. I stayed. I volunteer there now, 3 days a week. I'm not a lawyer, God knows, but I'm the intake coordinator. I'm the first face they see. I make the coffee. I listen. I hold their hands while they cry, and I tell them, "I believe you." Last week, a young woman we'd helped, using the fund to break a lease her abusive ex had locked her into, came back. She'd gotten her kids back and was moving into a new apartment. She brought me a plant, a small peace lily in a cheap plastic pot. "Thank you, Helen," she said, her voice thick. You saved my life." I lost a granddaughter. That will always be a scar. But I'm not wrinkles in the house anymore. I'm the foundation. I took the plant home to my new apartment, a sunny 1-bedroom I own outright. I put it on the windowsill. It was hard. It was a cold, hard, necessary thing I did. But as I watered that little plant, I watched a new, green leaf unfurl toward the light. My house was finally, truly, in order.